Hey, how's it going? This is Hewitt Tomlin from Team Builder. With me today, I've got Todd Hammer from Robert Morris University. He's the head of strength and conditioning there. Todd, I want to start out by just kind of talking about where we are right now. We're at Juniata College. It's the Pennsylvania State Strength and Conditioning Clinic, and this has been going on for a while. Todd, how long have you been coming to this clinic?
The first time I came here, I think I was a GA at VCU in 2001 or 2002, and actually I came here, a good friend of mine was speaking, Jim Rooney, who was the first basketball strength coach at the University of Richmond back then. I'll never forget it because we roomed with these two dudes, Jed and Jim. I was like, who are these guys? And I showed up, and the only clean shirt I had was a West Side shirt. And I was like, I'm going to be that guy in the West Side shirt.
Jed and Jim, Diesel Crew.
Yeah, and I walked in, they're like, West Side, we love this dude. We're your friends. And so I've been friends with those guys, obviously, and forever. And, you know, Doug puts on just one of the best clinics out there. For a state clinic with 20 presenters, 2 days, and food, and just a cool time out here in Central PA to meet people, talk shop, and learn a couple new things.
Dude, it really is awesome. I mean, we always talk about on our social media how this clinic is like the best underground clinic that no one talks about. I mean, it's just like understood that you show up, you're going to have a good lineup, you're going to meet a lot of people, and it's just like a good social event outside of the talks as well. I mean, we're sitting outside, and this is where we're going to have lunch here in about an hour or so. So can you talk a little bit about like the social aspect? I mean, a lot of coaches come up from all around just to hang out and socialize, which is not like the typical thing at clinics.
Absolutely. And I was telling you earlier off camera, I spoke Saturday at the University of Vermont's clinic, and this is and they put on a great clinic, and Scott Caulfield was there. There was a lot of people from the Vermont area presenting. The difference with this clinic is that it's the overnight. He gives people the option to stay 2 nights. And he just does such a cool, it's like the Woodstock of you know, all the cool kids know where to go, and they go out to Woodstock and party. You know, we come out to Central PA just because you know you're going to have 25 strength coaches. You look, we had strength coaches from California, from Virginia, from New York, Jersey, obviously Pennsylvania.
Kansas.
Kansas. Andrea Huddy came out. There's just so many strength coaches and so many schools represented. You could sit there and list the schools that have presented here, and to get somewhere where there's probably 25 universities represented here this weekend. I mean, most state clinics get 3 or 4. I think in Vermont we probably had 3 or 4, which was a nice turnout. At my clinic, I might get same, and maybe 5 or 6 of them lucky. But 25 universities showing up is just amazing, and Doug does such a great job with that.
It is, man. It's a cool variety of speakers and people in attendance. So let's turn to you for a little bit, man. Obviously, anyone who knows you or knows of you knows that you're a voracious reader. What are you reading today? What's on the lineup?
Right now, I'm actually reading a book called Truck. It's about a guy who rehabs his international pickup truck over a year. It's like a 1951 or whatever year international pickup truck. And this guy, he's just an author, lives out in middle of nowhere, Midwest, little town. He's a volunteer fireman. And it's kind of a memoir while rebuilding a truck. And him and his buddy are just, redoing the truck from beginning to end. It's cool to follow someone's life because the guy, I think, kind of thinks like me. Actually, he's on my list of people to email and say, I love the way you think, and the way he would look at the truck through his life and kind of remember back to, mistakes he made, things he learned. Because I think the lesson from books like that is looking back at those mistakes. Everyone talks about their mistakes, but how often do we keep stepping back into those mistakes?
Yeah.
And reminding ourselves so we don't make them again, because it's easy to learn from a mistake in a minute and say, don't do that again. Then you have to always, I think it's important to revisit your own errors and say, where did I fail in that situation? Because I don't want to do it again. And when I think reading more memoir-ish books, if you will, is important because you can see people's errors in their way, and where he talks about himself and his family and things they did right, things they did wrong, and what has led them to where they are today. And I always look at my life and I'm like, I'm happy right now. I probably did more right than wrong, but there's definitely some wrong along the way.
Do you think it's possible for like a strength coach to make mistakes and then talk about it and recognize it, but still not, remedy it?
Yes.
That they keep making it? Admitting to mistakes but still doing it again?
And I think it goes back to, I often say this, and it's sometimes I explain it well, sometimes I fail. I believe our biggest strength is our biggest weakness. Quite often, if you're a rah-rah coach, you're a rah-rah coach, and maybe sometimes your rah-rah becomes old because you're a rah-rah coach, and then you start to lose the kid. If you are I always call it the Scientologist coach, a really sciencey person, so sciencey that you're like a Scientologist following it, and then putting down religion, you're just following it. And what happens is you sometimes get paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
So you can't see the forest through the trees,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So I
Yeah.
think so often we allow our strengths to become our weaknesses as coaches. I do it, and you have to keep looking back and reflecting back on that and say, okay, I love being in a weight room. I love coaching. I'm not a great programmer. I know people that can program. People tell me to program, like, oh, we're squatting today. I don't know what those words you just said mean. And I feel like sometimes I need to take a step back and say, okay, stop this and maybe focus over here. Get my programming a little tighter, because it's not always great. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll call just people smarter than me.
Yeah.
Say, what are you doing and how am I stealing this? I was lucky. I got a Facebook message from Matt Ladusky last week. Matt is an 800-pound deadlifter, writes for Lead FTS. I just write for Lead FTS. And he said, you have weight releasers. I see you've been using them. And I just posted a few videos on Facebook. I said, yeah. And I don't even know why I posted the videos. It's just, I don't know. They look cool. I have weight releasers. I play with them. And he said, I have some great ideas for you. And he started running me through what he was doing with his weight releasers. And for 45 minutes, I'm on the phone with him, taking notes, everything. And we're basically now revamping my next 6 weeks. And I think it's cool to have that network around you and be able to have people calling you saying, and getting lucky enough for people to call you and say, I care enough to give you this information. Now go try it.
Yeah.
And that's where we need to be as a profession, I think. Where people are going to call and say, hey, I see you're doing this. Have you tried this, or tweak this, or try this, or do it this way?
When you have your assistants, your interns, your GAs, do you sit down with them and talk to them each about what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are? And then the follow-up question is, do you help them grow their strengths, or do you work on their weaknesses to make them more well-rounded?
It's I just had this conversation with my president of my university, awesome guy. He came to our staff meeting, and we were talking about that thing, and I said, I have such a hard time, and I fail every day at this, when you give someone under your care information and when you withhold the information. I'm going to give you a little story. So I was in Vermont last week, so I took the week off, kind of did a little family trip here, as I was telling you about, and my staff wanted to be up here Friday morning. Well, we had one thing Friday morning, men's basketball lift. So I had talked to the coach and said, listen, we're going to want to give him Friday off. Are you cool with this? And he said, we'll work it out. I said, but I'm not going to tell my staff that I talked to you. I'm just going to text them when I get in the room and say, oh yeah, by the way, you have to talk to the basketball coach.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I want to see how they do it. So I didn't actually tell them that what I had done. I'd already persuaded the coach. I just wanted to put a little pressure on them. So I withheld some information at that time just to put a little pressure on them.
Yeah.
And then I told them over dinner last night, I said, by the way, you guys know I talked to the basketball coach. I said, we knew it went too easy. I mean, we went up to him and said, are we okay having Friday off? And coach went, yeah, that should be fine. Like, he would never say that.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a good opportunity for them to have to overcome that fear, quote unquote, of dealing with the quote unquote premier coach on campus and saying, hey, is it okay if we have a day off? And so it's a tough balance. I think sometimes you could tell someone their weakness, but sometimes you have to show it to them.
Yeah.
You have to let them experience it. Okay, this is where you're failing. How can we pick that game up now?
Yeah.
So yes and no, and I will promise you I don't have the answer because I fail at that all the time.
Yeah.
I do try to let people know where I think they need to tighten things up. At the same time, I like to try to put people in positions where I think their weakness will come out.
Yeah.
If I had a guy who worked for me. He was a D2 All-American in football, and I said, "You're getting soccers." And he looked at me. He said, "Why?" I said, "Because you need soccers in your life.
Uh-huh.
You need the opposite of what you have." And he did great with soccers, and now he's a guru in the women's basketball world of strength and conditioning.
I love that.
I don't think without soccers he would have got there.
Yeah. So, follow-up question, last question, and we'll wrap it up. I want to talk about how do you inspire or incentivize younger people to read more often? There's someone I follow, and his big agenda is making it more socially acceptable, or I should say professionally acceptable, to read at work. While you're at work, you should be able to read while you're there. Do you have some sort of method or strategy for getting younger people to read?
I need
more
one.
often?
I don't think I have a specific strategy with it. I mean, obviously, I've referenced books a lot. And I do listen to a lot of podcasts, and I like podcasts. I don't think there's anything better than reading a book, actually taking it yourself podcasts, you're getting the voice, you're getting the emotion, where when you're reading, you have to paint that picture yourself, so you got to get that brain working.
I agree with you on that.
But I think letting people know, this is a meathead profession. I love being a meathead. Everyone knows me knows every Friday is Hate Breed Friday. I'm gonna crank up some hate breed. I'm gonna lift some weights. I'm gonna make some noise. I might use an expletive or two. And Saturday is
Let's not get too wild.
too crazy here. But Saturday is I'm not touching a weight. I'm not going in the weight room. I'm getting out of it. So I think letting people know, often when they enter a profession, they think it's on. Where, my notebook, as you can see, with my team, is covered with trolls. It's okay to be human. It's okay to be human. So it's okay to read a book. It's okay to be smart. It's okay to enjoy art or wine or whatever it is that you dig. And I'm cool with that. And everyone that works for me is going to be different, everyone who I deal with. But often when people say, what should I read? How should I read? I say, I don't care. Whatever it is that, if you have a passion for, see a mushroom grow, mushrooms, read about mushrooms. Go become a forager. I don't care. If you have a passion for masonry, go read about, how you build that building. Find where your passion is. And rarely do I say, have I found myself read a book and not come back with 8 other books I need to read now.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it just builds upon itself.
I get the same feeling where I finish a book and sometimes I have an appetite for the next one.
Yes.
I want to get it done. So that's great. So thanks for joining us, man. I appreciate it.
I
And,
appreciate you guys.
We'll see you before the next clinic, but next Juniata clinic, if you're thinking about going, I want to encourage you to go. Todd will be back here as always, and of course we'll be back. So thanks for tuning in.